Welcome to Just Three Workplace Gurus, a podcast about the real world of work. My name is Mike.
I'm Amy.
I'm Vivian.
Today we're going to chat a little bit about joining the workforce, what that experience is like getting out there looking for a job in a post-COVID world. We thought we'd share a little bit of our experiences on the job hunt, and actually I did look for a job during COVID, so that's worth a chat about. So let's dive in. Why don't we introduce our two guests? Vivian, do you want to start?
Sure. Let's start with you, Liliya. Let's tell us a little bit about you, because I know you just graduated, and you are currently seeking employment, which is great, and I have a feeling it's very different for you than it had been for me back when. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move on to you, Evan.
Okay, well, I just graduated from the University of Massachusetts Amherst in a degree where I created my own major called The Societal Impact of Filmmaking. So it took classes from psychology, communications, and film because I didn't want to take the normal film pathway. And I am now trying to apply for film editing jobs because I discovered during undergrad that I love to create films and edit them. And I created a short documentary that really brought my excitement about film. And right now I run my own pet care business, which is very much different from film, but it's what brings in the money, and it gives me opportunity to search for film editing opportunities online and figure out what the next step is while doing that.
Fabulous. Well, I'm glad you have, it's really important and I think comforting to know you've got a fallback, which is the pet care. We want to hear more about that in just a bit. But anyhow, so thank you. All right, Evan.
Hey, my name is Evan. I am a marine biology major, soon-to-be graduate from San Francisco State University, and I'm kind of in the same boat of looking for, jobs in not even necessarily marine biology, but in the biology field or any marine science field would be cool. But yeah, a lot of the stuff that I think are the best options would be internships or volunteers in this kind of work. So that's a lot of what I'm looking for rather than an actual job. So I would probably also look for a unrelated part-time job if I can find one. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. I really appreciate it. Full disclosure, these two are related to certain people on camera, so if it seems that there is some familiarity, that's why. So I think the first question I'd like to pose is, what is your expectation of the workplace or how you'll engage with the workplace, given where we are in terms of work? And you both know this is primarily the topic that we talk about, is the workplace, wherever that is. And I'm curious to know how you envision it, what you think it might be. Evan has an unusual sort of experience in that this is what his dad has done for 30 years, so he knows maybe some things about workplace that not everybody does. But Liliya, tell us a little bit about how you feel about where you would work, how you would work. What are your expectations around that?
See, I right now have no idea, but what I want to do is, I don't want an office job. I want to be able to go to different places, talk to people, figure out what they want in their film. And a lot of that is in New York or LA or Boston. A lot of cities are looking for more film editing stuff, and you can find local things, but I don't know if I want to stay local. So I guess what I'm looking for is any job at the moment that would give me a chance, but also something that I feel really passionate about. There have been a couple jobs that I saw that are like social justice with film editing, and that's really cool to me. And I don't know if I'm answering your question anymore because I think I just went on a tangent.
No, I think you did. I'm just curious because I know that you're like literally just graduated maybe a month ago. And maybe tying back to your question, Mike, which is, there's the reality of like, oh, I need to make money. I want to really follow my passions. And it sounds like, hey, you have an idea of what you want to do, but are also open. So let me back up for a second. I'm just curious, where are you even looking? Like, what's even available? Like, when I'm going to date myself now, then once upon a time I opened the newspaper, and there was a classified section, and I literally, my first job out of college was waiting tables. That fall, I was like, okay, let me actually get a job in music, and I literally opened the work classified section, and I looked under P for piano, and actually, miraculously, there was an ad that said piano teacher wanted. And I applied for the job. It had turned out that I waited on the owners of the school a few weeks before at the restaurant. Crazy coincidence, got the job. And that was my jumping off point. It's very different today. So just...
And Vivian, I actually want to even take it a step back from there. I want to understand why each of you chose the majors that you did. Because I'm curious if there was something that influenced that decision or something you saw or experienced that got you there.
Well, I started off as a psychology major, going at SUNY Purchase, and I thought I was going to be a clinical psychologist who works with adopted kids. That was not going to get me through school, and I wanted to enjoy my time at school, so I took some time off, which I think is a really good thing that people should be able to do and not feel bad about it, because figuring out what you want to do is it's a big piece that you need to figure out, but it takes a long time. And so I took time off. I remembered this teacher in high school who really showed me my passions for film. And I was like, okay, that's where I feel happiest. So I decided to go back into school, changing my major, making something new, and actually trying to enjoy education while also doing something I'm passionate about. Cool. So that was something that I really wanted to do, was finish my education, but be happy with what I'm doing. So.
And Liliya, I'd like to say, even after almost 30 years of being in the business, you're not going to know what you're doing today is going to be very different in 30 years.
Very different.
I mean, it changes, it evolves. There's things you're going to find that you're going to love, and there's things you're not going to like. So it always evolves. Don't put a lot of pressure on yourself now that you have to have it figured out.
Well, you know what they say. If you want to make God laugh, tell her your plan. Anyhow, Evan, what about you?
I think I've always been interested in, at least some kind of science zoology field ever since I was like a little kid. We went to the Monterey Bay Aquarium so many times as a kid. I actually literally just had to write a paper about this kind of thing. So it's fresh in my mind, like, going to the aquarium, seeing all that stuff. It's like, wow, that's, there's like a whole world beyond our own that nobody really ever gets to see, that you can connect to. And then you're like, oh, you can actually study that. So then going into, I started at community college at Cabrillo. And I think if I remember now, it's been a few years, I was just general ed for a bit there because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Actually, at some point I did consider film. I think I do like video editing and stuff, so I considered that, but I ended up taking like one marine biology class because I needed a lab class, and I was like, why am I, what am I doing? Like neandering around when this is what I should have known deep down that this is what I wanted to do the whole time. So then I ended up, trying to get into a 4-year institution, and I got with SU. So, yeah.
Awesome. Oh, this is great. And I think, to everybody's point, first of all, congratulations to both of you, because I think what I keep hearing is you found something that really, really excites you, and you want to pursue that. And, hey, I have a dog walking business for now, but Liliya, I know you, and you love. This one is like a dog whisperer, right? Dogs love you, you love them.
I need you at my house right now. I have a puppy, and I really need you.
Oh my God, what kind of puppy?
A beagle. And he was in the crate at the beginning of this call, but we had to take him out because he wasn't being quiet.
Oh, I want to meet your, what's his name? Her name?
Tucker.
Tucker.
He's
Very
6 months
cute.
old. Yeah.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks. So, Liliya, if you ever come to California, come join us.
I will be right over there.
There's a lazy 14-year-old Lassapoo back there who might also be interested.
I saw
Occasionally
it.
walked into the picture.
I love it.
That's great.
Okay, but my question is this: you love what you both have this area of passion, and then I keep hearing and reading like, hey, for your generation, and I know every generation has had their struggles, but there's a number of challenges, like cost of living being one. This sort of anonymous job search online, and AI is vetting your resumes, and just a lot of people. Someone I know, literally, not to scare you, just posted on LinkedIn that after 400 and some odd days of looking for work and 98 rejections, she finally landed her dream job. So I don't say that to be discouraging, but it's like a new reality out there. So I don't know. I'm just curious what you're just knocking on the door, but what your experience so far is. Where do you even go to look for work? Are there apps or sites that are better than others, and just what's that like?
Well, I think I've just been looking in the past 2 weeks, because before that I had family and all that, but I made a LinkedIn account, and so there's been a lot of job searching there, and a lot of it is super helpful, and some of it is really cool. But then if I'm looking for more local stuff, I'll look at Indeed. I also am trying to set up a meeting with someone who works at my university to help with job searching, who's in the college that I was in. So that would be super helpful, because she has so much experience of writing resumes, cover letters, helping you find jobs, and I think that would be a really good experience for me to meet with her and figure out what the next step is.
Do the universities have a strong career center nowadays? Like, do they bring in employers or help with that network of alumni?
I mean, I'm assuming so. I'm not entirely sure the whole process, but I know that this one person works with just BDIC students, which is bachelor's degree individual concentration. So she has, her expertise is in that area. These are like a lot of like creative people who are bringing in arts and fashion and law and like all this stuff that you normally would not put together. But these students are doing that. So they're trying to find ways that their degree can turn into jobs later on.
Evan, what about you?
Evan, did you see much of that? Counseling, that sort of thing?
They held, at least one time while I was there, they held a whole like job fair where you could connect to people that I didn't go to because I had like a multi-hour long lab class while it was happening, of course. But yeah, they definitely have those kinds of resources to connect to jobs.
And let me ask you, within the departments that you both were in, was there any kind of mentoring or professors who would say, hey, you should do this, or you might think about that? I mean, what was that process like? I got a degree in English. I don't think any of my professors were going to tell me to do anything but write a novel, which I haven't done.
In music, they didn't even do that. They were just like, I learned how to play the heck out of the piano, but it came out being like, I guess I'll wait tables. Like, it was
See,
really
and I
nothing.
actually had the opposite. I did work through the Career Center in college, and they actually helped me land my first job through the alumni association and different career fairs. So, I mean, that's why I was curious if that was still something that's pretty, because you do have to have those connections, right? Or some kind of introduction into these types of businesses.
Interesting. So I guess you'll find out. We'll have to do a part 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
How about recruiters? Is there such a thing as recruiters anymore? Do you connect with them at all? No.
I mean, there are headhunters still out there, but I don't know.
I know that so UMass is well known for their Eisenberg School, which is the business school, and they'll have a lot of job fairs for Eisenberg. because a lot of people are wanting to hire business people right out of school. So I think it also depends on what school you're in. Since mine was so small, there's only a certain amount of people that might be looking, and because it's so different, that I don't know, you just have to figure out what you want to do kind of on your own.
Interesting.
Let's talk a little bit about what your expectations are of the workplace. And I think I probably know the answer based on the things you're interested in. But Evan, how do you see your life in a workplace? Is that something, do you expect some flexibility in where you work, how you work? Do you make the assumption that because of what you're interested in, that's not possible? How do you think about that?
Yeah, for I don't know that I would say it's like a niche field, but it's not like even people that study in this field don't necessarily end up working there. But from experience, from working with professors and stuff, it's a little bit like kind of go with the flow in a way. Like if you're working in a lab, you have it's like you go in, you maybe have to go out in the field, and if you're doing that, you have to follow pretty strict times with like tides and stuff. That's just a marine biology thing, and I'm sure with other biology fields, like other zoology fields, where you're like actively going out, you probably encounter something similar. But in terms of like actual work, it's a little bit looser. I think a big question that I always had is like how you find like what you're studying, because a lot of, from what I understand, it's like you go to grad school, you work for a certain lab, in one that I took a class under was the marine invertebrate lab at Moss Landing Marine Labs. So I talked to the other grad students that I shared the class with, and I was like, how do you choose what you're working on? How do you determine what you're studying? And they're just kind of like, you just kind of get stuck with it. It just happens. If they have an opportunity to work on jellyfish, they'll be like, hey, do you want to work on jellyfish? And you might go, sure. The head of that lab worked on sponges, and I don't know that she chose sponges. I think that it just kind of happened like that, but she likes it. But yeah, like a lot of times too, it's really like in a small institution like that, it's also just like there's that one person that studies this one really specific thing, and that's what they do.
Right.
So
Evan, it just sounds like maybe I know nothing about marine biology, but like Liliya, you mentioned LinkedIn, you mentioned Indeed. I think there's another one out there now called Handshake, which I think is geared towards fresh graduates, more so than people already in the field. So Evan, does that apply to you in this field, or is it more like, hey, through professors or just contacting single labs? I'm just curious where you even turn to even seek work.
Yeah, I think in my case, it seems like, from my understanding, that you kind of have to get your way in the door through volunteering or internships rather than like actual job searching. I can't speak for other fields if that's a big thing, but from my understanding, that's how it tends to work these days in a lot of scientific fields.
Interesting, but then how would you even get the internship? There's got to be like a job search component to that. So what does that look like?
Well, for me, like a lot of my, my school sent out like a weekly email for job and internship opportunities. And I've just had a lot of professors like recommend me, places to look.
Got it.
But in terms of just like searching, I guess you just have to know the institutions and hope, because I don't exactly know. I have a LinkedIn as well, and I just get like random offers that are not really related to marine work. So I'm like, I don't know if that's super helpful for me. But
Evan, you mentioned growing up that you went to the Monterey Bay Aquarium a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Is that for you kind of your ideal job, or is that where you would like to see yourself in the next 10, 15 years?
I think working under an institution like that would be really cool. They're connected to MBARI research, which is like I think that just stands for Monterey Bay Aquarium Marine Research Institute or something. And they do offer internships there seasonally, I think. Yeah, I don't, sorry, I ran out of things to say.
No, that's okay. Here's a personal question, but just curious. Are these internships, because Lily, you might be looking at internships too. Like, I don't know what that pathway is, but for you, Evan, is that, in general, are those paid internships or not paid?
No.
You mentioned the word volunteer.
Yeah, a lot of it is volunteer work. I just applied to a marine mammal research thing at the Seymour Lab near UCSC, which is Santa Cruz, California. And they were like, "This is not a paid position. We don't have the funding for that. So if you're looking for that, look somewhere else." That seems to be pretty common too.
It's the resume builder, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, have you read the book Remarkably Bright Creatures?
Mm-mm.
Where an octopus is the narrator? And it takes place in the aquarium up in Seattle. Anyway, you might want to check it out. It's a pretty wonderful book, and literally the octopus is the narrator. You might relate. Not that you're an octopus, but... That's a marine biologist, but it's a wonderful book. And it's particularly wonderful to listen to. Anyway, just a little non sequitur there. Okay. So, so Mike, what was your original question? I think
it was really about what their expectations of the workplace are. You know, the office that they might go to. You know, I do know, for instance, Evan is more interested in lab work and research, so that's a different experience. Lily, it sounds like what you do could possibly be in office, could also be remote, could be similar to Evan, not necessarily in a place. Whereas, just to give you some context, I'm the director of real estate at a tech company. You know what your Aunt Vivian does, and Amy works for a furniture dealership. I'm in office a lot. Amy's in office and out with clients a lot. So all these office situations are different. But it is interesting to get a sense of what young people think, because the world has changed and the workplace has changed
dramatically
for us, dramatically in the last 5 years.
I don't know, Lily, what do you think? Could you see yourself?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious if remote is more appealing. Hey, I'd like to be in an organization where I actually go see people and I'm kind of part of something, or part, what's now emerged as the hybrid way of working, a little bit in the office, a little bit on your own, at home, or wherever. I don't know if you have any vision about that.
When I first started looking, I was thinking I would just look for remote jobs, because then I could do my pet business along with just doing work from wherever I am. Now that I'm searching more, I'm looking for more hybrid options that would allow me to either go to Boston for a day or like New York for a day or something like that, that's like close enough that I can still go and come back to whatever pet business I have. But I also really love interacting with clients. And with my pet business, I interact with animals. So it's not exactly the same, but
they don't speak back to you though.
Yeah, but doing film, you get to talk with people, and that's actually one of the pieces that I love. So it's not just the film editing, it's talking out what their vision is and what they want something to look like. And that's something that I really like, because I'm very much, as I learned lately, is that I'm very much a people person. And I like that. So maybe going into an office would work too, because it does give you that interaction type thing. But I also like not having to drive everywhere, because gas is expensive.
That is the number one resistance for people going back to the office, is the commute, the gas, the clothes, the whole 9 yards. Although they like seeing the people from their team. So But I was going to say something that I have, being an ergonomic consultant, I personally have probably been in hundreds of offices over the last my career, and they're all so different. But I have met a lot of creative teams within an organization, whether they're on the marketing or they're making videos and comms for their product or internal trainings or just whatever facet of video editing. Maybe there's a social media component to it, but they're working now with a team of creatives within an organization that has an office or remote. I don't know if anything like that appeals to you, or like, hey, I want to be a filmmaker, period, end of sentence.
No, in one of my classes, it was a screenwriting class, and this was based in Dublin when I did a semester away, but this one person was talking about the writing room and how so many people work off the ideas of others, and I loved that idea.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you get to interact, but you also get to bounce ideas and stories and get new ideas from other people, and that was something that really interested me. So even if it is screenwriting or it is film editing or something in film that I can do, I don't know, I think I mean that, but also I have so many things that I could do, and I don't want to limit myself just to film editing.
Right.
So it's hard to look for multiple things at the same time, I feel like. But
one of the things both of you have said is you're really following your passion, which I love, right? You found something that you really enjoy doing, and now it's a matter of finding the career path that's going to continue that passion. And I was curious, when you're out there looking for an employer, what are some of the things you're looking for them? What are you expecting in terms of benefits or perks or experiences?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a full-time position, I would love, some of them offer insurance, which is really nice. Right now, that would be helpful because you turn 26 and you get kicked off of your parents' insurance, so that's what I'm dealing with. But I don't know. I think this doesn't really have to do with benefits or anything, but the way they write their job description. They talk about it in a way that we're looking for creative people, but they write it in a really creative way, and that brings me in. If they're just we're looking for a film editor this many days a week here, that's boring. Yeah, I'll apply maybe, but I love the creative ones where they give you a lot of information and they tell you what they want, but they do it in a very fun, creative way.
And then that resonates. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's so. It sounds like the company, for lack of a better word, culture. That's what it gives you a flavor of, hey, what this company might be like. How important for both of you? How important, aside of your own interests, the mission of a company, or what they're, how much does that factor in? I would love to work there because I love this institution, or I love what they're doing, or I don't know. Both of you, Evan. I don't know if you want to answer that first.
I do think that's pretty important to me personally. The places that I mentioned Moss Landing Marine Lab there. The whole culture around there was just a wonderful atmosphere. Everybody's so nice. I think it's because it's a pretty small place. My first day taking a class there, I ran into two different people in the hall, and they were both oh, I haven't seen you before, So everybody was super welcoming. So something where you're at least vaguely connected, even if you're not working together, would be nice. And I think, the mission of the institution, I think, is pretty important to me, but it's going to be pretty similar if I'm working at marine science labs and stuff.
Interesting. And what about you, Liliya?
I don't know. I think when I look to see if it aligns with what I'm view. There's this, I was talking about the social activism film editing thing, and I think right now, especially like editing videos that make a point or create a difference is something that's really important to me. But I don't know. I mean, it's film editing is such like there's so many different things you could do in film editing, like, and sometimes I get lost in what I'm looking for, if that makes sense, because there's so much. But I think the ones that catch my eye are the ones that make a difference, or obviously if it's like Paramount or something big, I'm like, oh, I'll do that. But I don't know, the little ones that want to make a difference in the world, I think, stand out to me.
Nice. Mike, when you were graduated with your English degree, what was your next step? Do you remember?
I applied.
Now I have to get a job. Right.
Yeah. I had intended, I mean, there were a lot of intentions there that didn't really come together. And it's funny that I share this with my children often, because I certainly didn't pick the career that I'm in. I sort of fell into it. I think Amy, you would agree.
Same here.
I had intended to probably be an English teacher. I have a degree in English, I should say. And then I thought, well, okay, maybe I'll go into publishing. And I remember interviewing for a job at a publishing company here in California. I had to take a typing test, which on an IBM selector type, I'm aging myself here. And I did not do great, and I knew I wasn't going to get that job. It was also 1984. There weren't a lot of jobs. So I ended up waiting tables. My career trajectory is very odd. And I didn't really find this career until I was well into my 30s.
Same here.
Yeah, so sometimes I think that happens. I'm fascinated that both these people have a direction, because I didn't really have that. And I have to compliment my son and my daughter, who's not on the podcast. They are really very driven, and they know exactly what they want. It's funny to me that Evan's talking about getting a master's degree because his sister is already working on her master's degree. So I think that's really awesome. It can be really challenging to figure out what you want to do. And I always say, I don't know how I became a subject matter expert in a field I did not know existed 30 years ago.
It found you.
And here it is, yeah.
And you're great at it. So
well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think that's really fascinating. And Liliya, you said something about being open-minded or being flexible. I can't remember. I'm sorry, I can't remember what it was, but it stuck with me because I think that's what I did. I was open-minded to whatever came along, and getting into the tech world and facilities was literally a phone call from a friend who said, hey, we need somebody to do this job at this company. Are you interested? I interviewed, they gave me the job. I had no idea what I was doing. But all I was doing was coordinating the move. I was a moves, ads, and changes coordinator. All I did was move people, coordinate. I didn't physically do it. Coordinate the move of people from cubicle to cubicle. This job, by the way, does not exist in the 21st century because we don't have stuff. Well, we have a laptop now. But
pick yourself up and go. Right.
And it turned into a career. And I may have said this on the podcast in the past. I don't know if I did, but I literally looked down the hall at the director of real estate, who has been my friend now for almost 30 years and is the reason I have a career. And I saw him standing at his cubicle and said, oh, I should do that. And I did.
Boom.
And so it's that openness to, hey, something might come of this. I might do that. And to some degree, I think that has a lot to do with the three of us doing this podcast. Just this ongoing conversation and saying, well, other people are doing it. Why can't we do it? Why can't we be successful? We should just do it and see what happens. So
Absolutely.
I think it's that open-mindedness and that willingness to try things that you don't know how to do. We openly admit this is not an area of expertise for any of us. We're sure as heck trying. And we're doing great, and we're very excited. I can't tell you guys, I'm just going to jump off a little bit of the subject and say, I can't tell you how often the three of us are saying, we're really doing this. We're so excited.
Our podcast, yep.
And we have so many things we want to talk about. So I do really think that openness to whatever might come is a great thing. Now, Evan has a very clear and specific world that he wants to work in. But I know there are lots of opportunities in that. So you can still be open-minded within the world that you've chosen.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think that that willingness to look around and see what might come is just really cool. Difficult, but cool.
And I think exposure is amazing. So with that open-mindedness, Mike, is really kind of just taking any opportunity that you get and just trying to run with it, right? And one of the things
sometimes you just got to jump. Right?
You got to jump, even if you think you don't know what you're doing. And be vulnerable, right? To go in and so that you get that exposure. I think one of the things that I am seeing more and more is because we're working in such an interesting way, very independently, really, is how people work these days, is take those opportunities to go out and shadow or spending time with somebody, taking them to coffee or lunch, just to learn from them. And maybe that has also, I feel like, opened up a lot more opportunities for myself and, for my family and friends.
Well, it's funny
I feel like... Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I feel like we're giving advice now.
Sorry.
So apologies,
we are.
guys.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I will take it.
I do think who you know absolutely matters. I haven't gotten a job in 30 years that I didn't get because I knew someone who made a phone call.
Yeah.
Literally not one of my jobs.
Yeah.
Just to give you kind of an inkling of that, I was unemployed during COVID, and my brokers were working for a tech company, working on their real estate portfolio. And this happens a lot in my world where the brokers end up being the director of real estate, and at some point it's just too cumbersome. And this has happened now 3 times where the brokers will say, I know a guy, he's the guy for you. I interview for the job, I get the job. Now I'm the director of real estate, and those brokers who are my colleagues are still my brokers, but they helped me get the job. And it benefited them, it benefited me, it benefited the company. Those kinds of things happen a lot where you just know somebody who knows somebody. I think we are maybe somewhat an insular career world, and lots of people know lots of people, and that's very helpful. Who you know, making phone calls, as Amy says, getting out there and having coffee and connecting with people, anything you can do really works, and I am proof of that. Every job I've gotten has been because I made connections and interviewed and got jobs.
Oh, 100%. And I think even as a business owner, we haven't advertised in ever. It's all network and, word of mouth and whatnot. But I'm curious, both of you, I know you're kind of talking about your experience and you're just like jumping off the diving board. So we're going to see what happens. And I know both of you are going to be successful. Do you have a sense of what your friends' experiences are who are also looking for work? Is it positive, negative? Are you hearing anything from them? I'm curious what's happening.
It's funny because all my friends at the moment have jobs, and so they're sympathetic of like the experience I'm going through, but they're like, we have jobs, so we're not worrying about this anymore.
That's great.
But
did they have a hard time, or did they fall into things? Like, I'm just curious if
one of them fell into it pretty easily.
Okay.
And the other one, I think, is kind of looked around for a while also being in school. So I think they're enjoying what they're doing now, but it took a little bit.
Right.
And I guess my view on it, and it's that I don't want to pick the first job just because it's a job. And maybe my father is saying otherwise, partially.
I was just going to say,
But I mean, I know it's like you can switch jobs and do things that you want to do, but I don't want to work at a job for like 6 weeks and then say goodbye. Like that doesn't feel good to me.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And you
who
want to
knows?
know. And look, sometimes it's not the right fit. Sometimes interviews go great, and you're like, yes, and then you all start working together, and you're both like, oh no, right? But
We could do
yeah.
2 hours on that subject.
Yeah.
JK. Anyway, just kidding. Interesting. And Evan, what about you? Are your? I mean, a lot of your friends are probably in the same boat as you, but are any of them out there looking, and are you hearing anything from them?
This stuff that I'm hearing about, like the I don't know. I hear there's like a big shift in the way hiring is going for a lot of people that are straight out of college, and like a lot of times, especially for more specific fields, like just going to college. I can't say if this was the same, 20 or 30 years ago, but nowadays, just getting out of college, that's like not enough for you to just get a job in the field straight up. You have to be spending, however many hours interning or volunteering, which a lot of people can't do because, a lot of people need money.
Eating is nice.
Yeah. So it's like,
I'm a fan.
so in something like my case, it would be like, I get my degree. I don't know if it even matters that much as a bachelor's degree. Then I do volunteer work until I have enough experience for a master's degree. And then I do that program, but then the internship that I'm supposed to do during my master's program might not even, count towards a job, because from what I hear, a lot of people are saying that, that internship experience isn't really looked at as like job experience by, employers. It's looked at as like that's just more education, even though, you might literally be working a job. Like my friend. A close friend of mine was working in therapy at the same school, and she was literally a therapist working, with clients doing therapy, but that, from an employer standpoint, that's just schoolwork for her, even though it was basically working a second job.
Right.
So I think a lot of people are a bit frustrated because of that.
Yeah.
Well, and the financial impact, I would imagine, I think, Evan, you have the luxury of being able to move back home and live with your parents, right? But the financial impact of doing your undergrad, volunteer work that's unpaid, and then with the pressure of going back and getting your master's degree, that's a huge, ask. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It is.
I have noticed a lot of people just feeling very frustrated by the whole thing nowadays. So
Yeah.
What's interesting about what you're saying, Evan, is that we also hear out there in the ether people saying a bachelor's degree doesn't matter anymore. I can go do whatever I want. So it seems like there's almost a bit of a rift, between what it takes to do some things and what it doesn't take to do others.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating. I didn't realize that.
It is fascinating, and I don't know. I mean, maybe it's been, I don't know. I'm going to say maybe it's been a while, but the truth is, my whole career, no matter what I've done, I've had to forge a path. I guess everybody does. But when people say, like, I can't get work out there, and I sometimes, like, kind of tilt my head to the side, and I think there's so many, if you're industrious and you're willing to roll up your sleeves and do the work, there's so much out there with the gig economies to make, like hustling on the side and doing whatever you got to do. And my day was like waiting tables and babysitting and doing whatever I had to do while I was like saying, hey, I want to pursue what I want to do, which like you, Mike, I was going to be a concert pianist. And I still play piano and I still perform. But like if you had told me I was going to have an ergonomics company, what's ergonomics? What are you talking about? That came in my 30s, and then that became a crystal clear compass, but always hustled and did whatever had to be done to keep the lights on. And there's a wonderful book out there called The Firestarter Sessions by, I believe her name is Danielle Laporte. And her whole thing is, hey, if you want to do something, there's a way to do it, with degree, without degree. And her whole focus is very interesting. She said, focus on how you want to feel. And the opportunities will come. Of course, you have to do the work. But her whole thing is don't settle, right? And sometimes you say, hey, that's my pathway to this, and I'm doing the stepping stones. But I think that's very good advice. And when my daughter was graduating, she was offered a job, I think at the Maryland Department of Disabilities or something like that. Great job, but I knew it wasn't for her. And she felt the pressure to take it because she's like, oh, I got to earn money. And one day I said to her, I don't know if this was my finest parenting moment or my worst, but I was like, do you really see yourself in this job? And she's like, yeah. I was like, really? And she goes, no. I said, I don't either. She's like, oh, thank God. I'm like, you can be a barista. You could do whatever you got to do while you're looking for that job. You could move home for a few months and, whatever, which she did. And then she did it again when she got her master's. But, I think that's a good compass. And it sounds like both of you have that pretty instilled in your heart already. So,
well, that's the other thing is that living expenses and rent while job searching it's so expensive. And luckily, I have the parents who let me live here, but trying to find a full-time job with how much rent costs it's just insane.
It is insane. That is true. So that's a whole nother episode.
Yeah, yeah. I liked, Liliya, too, when you talked about benefits, another thing to consider, right? That by the age of 26, that's very important to have.
Yeah.
It's coming fast.
Benefits, there's time off, there's all that good stuff. But you were going to say, Mike.
No, I was going to say we're getting towards time. Any parting thoughts from either of you on, the future of work and how you feel about what you're doing? Anything you'd like to share or ask us, even?
I would just say that it feels like there's a lot of people that are around my age, freshly out of college or, out of a master's program. I'm just keep saying the exact same thing. It feels like there is just a lot of uncertainty, confusion, frustration. And I don't know if that's because the actual, hiring and work culture has changed, or if it's because our social structure has changed because of the pandemic, and we have a different level of expectations or a different idea of how things work. When maybe nothing has changed, and it's just that maybe the pandemic has just warped our perceptions. But it's a really common thing that I hear from a lot of people my age.
I think that's true. And Lily, I know you and I have had some conversations recently. You're like, you just echoed, kind of everything that Evan has just said. And I think that's very normal. But I think there might be even more challenges today for you guys. And I think it's real. I don't think you're imagining it or, gosh, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel so overwhelmed and confused? And I don't know. And, but, just keep that compass pointed. You'll get there.
I mean, I also think, you have a freak out right after you graduate because you're like, what do I do now? We're in school for this long, and then all of a sudden you're not doing anything and you have to figure it out. I mean, I had that freak out. I'm still having that freak out, but I don't know. It's just the process of getting to the next step, I think, is just the in-between is very unsettling.
Yeah.
This may not be helpful to you, Liliya, but now that I am towards the end of my career, I'm having the same freak out because I'm not sure what I'm going to do next.
Yes, I have friends who are starting to do that, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, ooh, what's going to be in 5 years, 10 years? But I think any transition is fraught with, now what?
It to some degree, it happens your whole life. This is off the subject a little bit, I did hear a news report the other day about the baby boomers who are now sort of thinking about retirement and don't want to retire. And so they are looking for ways to work part-time. Evan certainly heard me talk about this. I don't want to stop working. I love, for instance, doing this, and maybe this is part of my future career. I don't know. But I do think these are sort of, I don't know that I want to look at them as struggles. I want to think of them as opportunities. There's all this stuff out there. It's just kind of narrowing it down and figuring out, what am I going to do? How do I grab hold of whatever that is and make it work?
And I'll leave you with this, which is kind of inspiring. I had dinner last night with a friend who's in her 60s, And I said, my gosh, how are you? I haven't seen you so long. What's new? She said, I'm in law school. And my jaw dropped. And I was like, you're kidding me. And she's like, I love it. And I said, what how did this happen? She said, I never felt like I latched on to the right career. And and ironically enough, her husband was a lawyer. And then he stopped being a lawyer because he felt that wasn't right. They'd done this like total flip. But I thought, how courageous in your 60s to go back to law school. And she said, and the students are so nice to me because they're all like half my age, And anyhow, but I just thought that how brave. And she said, I love this new chapter in life. And let's see where this brings me. So anyway.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah, very cool.
Well, listen, thank you both for joining us. This has been a really interesting conversation. I agree. We should check back in with you in 6 months or a year and see what you're thinking and what your experiences have been. We really appreciate you joining us today. For our listeners, don't forget to like and subscribe and comment, and we will talk to you again soon.
Yes, and if you have a job to offer either one of these two, let us know. I'm not joking.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
This is the network.
People.
Yeah.
They will be assets to your
about.
team, I promise.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll bring you on our podcast as your incentive.
There you go.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye. Okay, bye.